The problem started right away. Within 1 week of announcing the alliance, 3 species stopped trading with Earth. The Veloci sent an angry letter. The Kathrani removed all their diplomats from human space. News reports across the galaxy showed pictures of dragons with scary headlines. Casey stood in Admiral Cole's office, watching the news on multiple screens. None of it was good. "The leaders back home are worried," Marcus said. He rubbed his head like it hurt. "Very worried. They knew this might happen." "Might happen, yes. But this," he pointed at the screens. "The Grothians are threatening to stop all trade. Half of our medicine comes through them." Casey stayed calm. "Give it time, sir." "We might not have time," Marcus sighed heavily. "The dragons are asking for something else, by the way." "What?" "They want to come to the Founders' Day celebration on Mars. The whole family, in public, with cameras." Casey felt her heart jump. Founders' Day was one of humanity's biggest holidays. Millions of people gathered to celebrate the first Mars colony. It was loud and crowded and full of children. "That is risky," she admitted. "It is a disaster waiting to happen. One scare person, one bad moment, and everything falls apart." "Or," Casey said slowly, "it is exactly what we need. A chance to show the whole galaxy that humans and dragons can be together peacefully. In public, with everyone watching." Marcus studied her for a long time. "You really believe this will work?" "I believe in them, sir. They are not monsters. They are a family that has been alone for 10,000 years. They are reaching out because they do not want to be alone anymore." Casey stepped closer. "And I believe in us. Humans have always been good at making friends with creatures that scared everyone else. We did it with wolves. We did it with horses. We can do it with dragons. Those are not the same thing. The idea is the same. We see past the teeth and claws to what is underneath." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "You have 3 weeks to prepare. And Casey, do not make me regret this." The next 3 weeks were the hardest of Casey's life. She worked with security teams. She talked to news reporters. She met with the dragons every day to prepare them. "There will be crowds," she told Kirith one evening. "Thousands of people. Some will be afraid. Some might say mean things." Kirith's scales rippled with worry. "What if I do something wrong? What if I scare them?" "You might. We cannot control how others feel. But you can control how you act." Casey reached out and touched the young dragon's leg. "Be patient. Be kind. Remember that their fear is not really about you. It is about stories they were told all their lives. Like the stories they told about humans? The Death Worlder stories? Yes, and we proved those stories wrong, one day at a time. You can do the same." Kirith leaned down until her big amber eyes were close to Casey's face. "Do you really think so?" "I know so." The day of the celebration came. The sky over Mars was clear and blue. Casey stood at the landing area as the dragon ship came down. Her heart was beating very fast as the door opened. Ruthana came out first, followed by the other adults. Kirith came last, staying close to her grandmother. Around them, thousands of humans stood behind safety barriers. Casey could feel their fear. She could see the worry on their faces. Ruthana looked at the crowd. Then, slowly and carefully, she lowered her head in a bow of respect. "People of Mars," she said. Her voice carried across the open area. "Thank you for letting us share your celebration. We come in friendship and hope." No one spoke. The silence was very heavy. Then a small voice called out, "Mommy, look, dragons!" Real dragons. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, had escaped from her mother. She was running toward the barriers, her face full of wonder instead of fear. Her mother, looking terrified, started after her, but Casey stepped in front of her gently. "Wait," Casey said softly. "Please, just watch." Kirith had seen the child. The young dragon crouched down, making herself small. She spread one wing slightly. The copper scales caught the sunlight and sparkled like gems. "Hello, little one," Kirith said. Her voice was very gentle. "What is your name?" "Sophie," the girl said proudly. "Are you a real dragon? Can you breathe fire? Can you fly? Your scales are so pretty." Kirith made her a laughing sound. "Yes, yes, and thank you. Would you like to touch my wing?" Sophie's mother looked at Casey desperately. Casey nodded a little. Girl reached through the barrier and touched Kirith's wing. Her eyes went wide. "It is so warm. Dragons are always warm. We have fire inside us. That is so cool." Around the area, something was changing. People were watching the little girl and the dragon. The fear was still there, but it was cracking, breaking apart. That an old man pushed forward. His eyes were wet with tears. "My grandfather told me stories," he said. His voice shook. "About the dragons. About how they protected his world from bad people long ago. He always said the scary stories were lies." He looked up at Verthana. "He would have been so happy to meet you." More people came forward. Not everyone. Not even most. But enough. They asked questions. They offered greetings. They looked past their fear and saw something different. Casey felt tears in her own eyes. She looked at VOR single quotes THANA. The ancient dragon was watching everything with wonder. "This is not what we expected," she said quietly. "No, we expected hate. Or at best, people staying far away." Her voice carried thousands of years of loneliness. "We did not expect this." "This is what humans do," Casey said simply. "We reach out, even when we are scared. Especially when we are scared. Then perhaps we chose the right friends." Sophie tugged on Kirith's wing. "Will you come to my birthday party? Please? I want to show you to all my friends." Kirith looked at Casey with surprise and hope. Casey smiled through her tears. "I think that can be arranged." And in the red light of the Martian sunset, a little girl and a young dragon became friends. And the galaxy watched and wondered and began to change. The Great Hall of Nexus Station was full of beings from across the galaxy. There were tall ones and short ones. Some had fur. Some had scales. Some had so many eyes that it was hard to look at them. They had all come for the same reason. The dragons were coming out of hiding after 10,000 years, and everyone wanted to meet them. Casey Brooks stood near the back of the hall with her team. She was a woman of 35 years with dark hair and calm brown eyes. She worked as a cultural liaison for the United Earth Coalition. Her job was to understand other species and help humans talk to them. "How many species are here?" asked Danny Ortega. He was young and nervous, fresh out of the academy. 32, Casey said. Every major civilization sent someone. The doors at the far end of the hall opened. Everyone went quiet. 7 dragons walked in. Casey had seen pictures, but pictures did not prepare her for the real thing. The largest dragon stood 12 feet tall. Her scales were deep red, almost black in some places. Her eyes burned like liquid gold. Great wings folded against her back. When she breathed, smoke curled from her nostrils. This was Vorthana, the matriarch, the leader of all dragons. Behind her came 6 others. Some were nearly as large as her. Some were smaller. One was clearly young, with scales the color of bright copper. This young one stayed close to Vorthana, looking around with wide, nervous eyes. Vorthana stopped in the center of the hall. She opened her mouth and let out a low sound. It was not loud, but Casey felt it in her chest. It was the sound of something very old and very powerful. And then something strange happened. Every species in the room started moving backward. The Veloci, who looked like giant insects, skittered away on their thin legs. The Grothians, who were 8 feet tall and feared nothing, shuffled back with their heads down. The Kethrani warriors, proud beings who would rather die than show fear, suddenly found reasons to be at the far end of the hall. Casey watched in amazement. In seconds, a wide empty space had formed around the dragon family. Every species had retreated. Every single one, except the humans. Admiral Marcus Cole touched Casey's arm. Brooks, everyone is backing off. Should we do the same? Casey did not answer right away. She was watching the dragons. She saw how the young copper one pressed close to the adults. She saw how Vorthana's golden eyes swept across the retreating crowd. And in those ancient eyes, Casey saw something that surprised her. Sadness. Deep, old sadness. "No, sir," Casey said. "I do not think we should. The Grothians are leaving. The Grothians do not leave anything. I know." Casey straightened her uniform. "Sir, I request permission to make first approach." Marcus stared at her. They had worked together for 6 years. He trusted her. But this was different. "If you get yourself killed," he said, "I will put it in your permanent record." "Understood, sir." Casey stepped away from her group and started walking forward. Her boots clicked on the floor. The sound was very loud in the silent hall. All around her, beings from 32 species watched with fear in their eyes. She walked toward the dragons while everyone else walked away. Vorthana's massive head turned toward her. The dragon's nostrils flared. A low growl built in her throat. Casey stopped at what she hoped was a respectful distance. She bowed her head slightly. She did not look directly into the dragon's eyes. She had read that this was polite in their culture. "Matriarch Vorthana," she said. Her voice was steady, though her heart was beating very fast. "On behalf of the United Earth Coalition, I welcome you to Nexus Station. We are honored by your presence." The growling stopped. Vorthana studied the small human before her. "You do not flee," the dragon said. Her voice was deep and filled the whole hall. "All others flee. Why do you remain?" Casey thought carefully before answering. "Because you came here looking for something, matriarch? It would be rude to leave you standing alone before you found it." Something changed in Vorthana's expression. Behind her, the young copper dragon peeked out, staring at Casey with wide amber eyes. "And what?" Vorthana asked slowly. "Do you believe we are looking for?" Casey looked at the dragon family. She saw how the adults had placed themselves around the young ones. She saw the tension in their bodies. She saw the hope they were trying so hard to hide. "I believe you are looking for what everyone looks for, matriarch. Connection, respect, maybe even friendship." She paused. "And I believe you have been alone for a very long time." The silence was heavy. Then, Vorthana did something that made every diplomat in the hall gasp. She lowered her enormous head until her eyes were level with Casey's face. "What is your name, small one?" "Casey Brooks, matriarch. Casey Brooks." The dragon seemed to taste the name. "You are either very brave or very foolish. I have been told those often look the same from the outside." A strange sound came from Vorthana's throat. It took Casey a moment to understand. The dragon was laughing. "Perhaps," Vorthana said, "the humans are not like the others." From behind her, the young copper dragon spoke up. Her voice was higher, younger. "Grandmother, she is so small. Is she not afraid?" "She is afraid," Vorthana said, still looking at Casey. "I can smell her fear. But she came anyway." The matriarch tilted her head. "That is interesting." Casey felt her face grow warm. "Fear is natural, matriarch. What matters is what we do with it." "Yes," Vorthana agreed. "That is exactly right." She straightened up to her full height. "Casey Brooks, will you speak with us? Will you tell us about your people?" "I would be honored, matriarch. And will you—" The dragon paused. For the first time, she seemed uncertain. Will you introduce us to others? Help them see that we mean no harm? Casey looked around the hall. Hundreds of eyes watched from a safe distance. Fear filled every face. It will not be easy, she said honestly. They are very afraid. We know. We have always known. Volvathana's voice carried 10,000 years of loneliness. But we had to try. Casey made a decision in that moment. She did not know if it was brave or foolish. She only knew it was right. Then let us try together, she said. I will help you, matriarch. I will stand beside you and show them there is nothing to fear. Volvathana extended one massive clawed hand, palm up. Casey recognized the gesture from her studies. It was an offer of alliance, of trust. She placed her small hand in the dragon's palm. The scales were warm and smooth. Together, Volvathana said. Together, Casey agreed. And in that moment, in a hall full of species who had stepped back in fear, one human had stepped forward. And everything began to change. 3 days passed after the first meeting. Casey spent most of that time on the dragon ship, learning about the family and their ways. The ship was very warm inside. Dragons liked heat. Casey's uniform stuck to her skin, but she did not complain. Today, she sat in a private room with Volvathana and several other adult dragons. The young copper one, whose name was Kirith, had placed herself as close to Casey as the adults would allow. Kirith seemed to like Casey very much. The other species will not speak with us, Volvathana said. Her golden eyes looked tired. They send messages through other people. They offer agreements that keep us far away. They are afraid. Can you blame them? Casey asked. She had spent the last 3 days reading everything she could find about dragon history. Your species hunted some of theirs long ago. The Veloci were prey animals on your world. The Kethrani fought 3 wars against you. That was thousands of years ago. True, but fear has a long memory. One of the other dragons spoke. His name was Drathkon, and his scales were the blue of a night sky. The galaxy knows the story. We became too powerful, too feared. We chose to leave to prevent more conflict. That is the official story, Casey said. It is in every history book. But it is not true, is it? Silence filled the room. The dragons looked at each other. Kirith suddenly spoke up. Tell her, grandmother. She is different. Volvathana's eyes softened as she looked at her granddaughter. Then she turned back to Casey. We did not choose to leave, Casey Brooks. We were forced out. Her voice carried old pain. 10,000 years ago, the Dracorath ruled a great empire. But we did not rule through war. We ruled through protection. The smaller species came to us for shelter. We kept them safe from those who would hurt them. Drathkon continued. Our protection made the predator species angry. They could not hunt while we guarded the weak. So they formed a group against us. They did not try to fight us. They knew they would lose. Instead, they spread lies. Stories of dragon cruelty, dragon hunger. They told the species we protected that we planned to eat them. Our friends believed the lies, Volvathana said. Overnight, we went from protectors to monsters. The species we had loved and guarded joined our enemies. They told us to leave or there would be war. Could you not have fought? Casey asked. We would have won, Drathkon said bitterly. But we could not bring ourselves to fight against those we had protected. We loved them, even though they had turned against us. So we went back to our home world and closed our doors. For 10,000 years, Volvathana said. We waited for the galaxy to forget its fear. But as you said, fear has a long memory. Casey felt something heavy in her chest. Why come back now? Volvathana looked at Kirith. Her eyes filled with love and sadness. Because our children deserve better. The young ones dream of stars they have never seen. They imagine friends they have never met. They are trapped on a world that feels more like a prison every day. Kirith lowered her head. I have never seen another species before this week. Only in pictures. I used to dream about meeting them, about having friends from other worlds. Her voice became very small. Now I know they will only ever be afraid of me. Casey stood up suddenly. The dragons looked surprised. No, she said firmly. That is not how this will end. Verthana tilted her head. What do you mean? The other species still fear you. That is true. But we can change that. Casey began pacing. Her mind was working fast. Humanity did not exist in space when the lies about you were spread. We missed all of it. We have no fear passed down from our ancestors. To us, you are just people we have not met before. You would stand with us? Drath Khan asked. He sounded like he did not believe it. Your species barely knows us. We know what it is like to be feared, Casey said. When humans first came to space, half the galaxy thought we were monsters. They called us Deathworlders. They said we were insane predators who would destroy everything. It took us 100 years to prove them wrong. How did you prove it? Verthana asked. By showing up. By being present every day. By being helpful and kind and exactly who we said we were until the fear wore down. Casey stopped pacing and faced the dragons. We can do the same for you. Together. The other species might punish you for helping us, Verthana warned. Let them try. Humans are stubborn. Kirith made a small, excited sound. Her copper scales seemed to glow brighter. Verthana rose to her full height. She was so tall that her head nearly touched the ceiling. For a moment, Casey felt the ancient power inside her. This being had lived for centuries. She had seen empires rise and fall. Then Verthana extended her hand, palm up. The same gestural alliance from before. You would do this for us? She asked. Truly? Even knowing the cost? Casey placed her hand in the dragon's palm without hesitation. You were protectors once. You guarded the weak and sheltered the afraid. That is exactly what humanity believes in. How could we not stand with you? You are a strange species, Casey Brooks. We have been told that many times. Verthana made that coughing laugh sound again. Then let it be so. We will face the galaxy together. Together, Casey agreed. From the corner. Kirith rushed forward and wrapped a wing around Casey. The wing was warm and surprisingly soft. Thank you, the young dragon whispered. Thank you for believing in us. Casey reached up and touched the copper scales. Believing is the easy part, Kirith. Now comes the hard work. But as she stood there, wrapped in a dragon's wing, Casey felt something she had not expected. She felt like she had found something important. Not just an alliance, something like family. The success on Mars did not stop the enemies of the alliance. If anything, it made them more determined. 3 months after Founders Day, Casey received an urgent call to Admiral Cole's office. When she arrived, Marcus looked worse than she had ever seen him. The Galactic Collective has called a tribunal, he said. Casey felt cold inside. The Collective was the group that governed space affairs. A tribunal was only called for the most serious problems. On what grounds? They say our alliance with the dragons breaks an old law called the Exile Accords. They want us to end the alliance or face punishment. The Exile Accords are 10,000 years old. Earth was not even in space when they were written. We never agreed to them. That is our argument, yes. But they say we accepted all old laws when we joined the collective. Marcus handed her a datapad. The hearing is in 2 weeks. The Kethrani are leading the attack. Casey read the document. Her heart sank with each paragraph. The charges were serious. Someone had worked very hard on this. "This is not about the law," she said. "They are afraid of what the Alliance means. Can you blame them? Humans with our ability to adapt, allied with dragons and their power? That is a group that could challenge anyone." Marcus sat back. "The question is, how do we fight it?" For the next 2 weeks, Casey barely slept. She worked with lawyers. She talked to the dragons. She gathered every piece of evidence she could find. But the more she prepared, the more she realized that facts would not win this fight. This was about feelings, about fear that had lasted 10,000 years. The tribunal met on Nexus Station, in the same hall where Casey had first met Vorthana. Representatives from every species filled the watching areas. The Kethrani prosecutor was named Velkar. He was tall and fierce, and he spoke with passion. The dragons were sent away for good reason, he declared. Their power threatens the balance of the galaxy. By joining with them, humanity has put us all in danger. The old law must be followed. The Alliance must end. When it was time for humanity to respond, Admiral Cole let Casey speak. She stood before hundreds of watching eyes and felt the weight of everything pressing down on her. "The prosecution talks about danger," she began. "About threats. About power that must be controlled. But I ask you, what danger have the dragons actually caused in 10,000 years? What worlds have they conquered? What species have they hurt?" She looked around the hall, meeting as many eyes as she could. None. The answer is none. For 10,000 years, they stayed on their world and hurt no one. And why? Because we told them to. Because we were afraid, and they loved us enough to give us time to stop being afraid. Casey stepped forward. Her voice grew stronger. "The prosecution talks about the past, about old wars and old fears. But I talk about the future. A future where we judge people by what they do, not by what their ancestors did. A future where fear does not make our choices. A future where we are brave enough to reach out, even when we are scared." She turned to face Velkar directly. "The Kethrani have a saying, 'Honor is proven by action.' I have seen the dragons in action. I watched them treat human children with gentleness. I saw them accept insults with patience. I watched them choose peace over pride, again and again. Their actions have earned my respect. Has your fear earned our punishment?" The hall was silent. Casey had one more thing to say. Humanity was not part of the galaxy when the Exile Accords were written. We do not carry your old grudges. We see the dragons clearly, without the lies and old hate. And do you know what we see? She paused, letting the question hang in the air. We see people. Complicated, imperfect people who made mistakes and paid for them. People who want nothing more than to come home. Her voice softened. Is that not what we all want? To belong somewhere? To be accepted for who we are? From the watching area, Vorthana sat very still. Beside her, Kirith had tears running down her scaled face. Humanity stands with the dragons, Casey finished. Not because they are powerful, not because we gained something, but because it is right. Because friendship and acceptance are always right, even when they are hard. She sat down. The silence continued. Then something unexpected happened. A Veloci delegate stood up. The Veloci had been among the most afraid, the most against the Alliance. Many generations ago, the Veloci said in their clicking voice, "My ancestors worked with the Dragon Empire." They spoke of great kindness, great protection. When the lies began, they refused to believe them. They were silenced. The delegate looked at the tribunal. Perhaps it is time we listened to the truth. More voices joined. A Grothian merchant who remembered old songs about dragon protectors. A diplomat whose world still had statues of dragon defenders. Story after story came out from species who had been taught to forget. The tribunal talked for 3 days. When they came back, Their decision was clear. The alliance would stand. Casey found Vorthana after the decision was announced. The old dragon was standing alone, looking out a window at the stars. "Thank you," Vorthana said without turning around. "What you did in there. No one has ever spoken for us like that. Someone should have long ago. Perhaps, but they did not." "You did." Vorthana turned to face her. For the first time, Casey saw tears in those ancient golden eyes. "You gave us back something we thought was lost forever." "What is that?" "A place in the galaxy. A chance to be more than monsters in a story." The dragon's voice broke slightly. "A chance to be family again." Casey reached out and placed her hand on Vorthana's leg. "You are family. You always were." The galaxy just forgot for a while. Kirith came running in, her copper scales bright with joy. She grabbed Casey in her wings and lifted her off the ground. "We won! We won! Casey, we won!" Casey laughed despite herself. "Yes, Kirith, we won." But as she hung in the young dragon's happy embrace, she knew the real victory was not the tribunal decision. The real victory was this moment. This feeling of belonging. This new family she had found. And somewhere in the galaxy, other species were watching and wondering, and perhaps, just perhaps, starting to believe that things could be different. 1 year had passed since the tribunal. Casey stood on the observation deck of Earth's space station, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. It was the day of the first human Dracorath cultural festival. Ships from 12 different species had come to see history being made. "You look tired, small one." Casey turned to find Vorthana behind her. The old dragon had learned to walk quietly over the past year. She knew that loud footsteps scared humans. "Just thinking," Casey said. "It has been quite a journey, indeed." Vorthana settled beside her, her scales catching the starlight. "The Gethrani have asked to begin trade talks. The Veloci have apologized for their opposition. I heard. How does it feel?" "Strange, wonderful, scary." The dragon's voice carried ancient weariness mixed with new hope. "For so long, we dreamed of this. Now that it is happening, I do not know how to feel." Casey reached out and touched Vorthana's leg. It was a gesture of comfort that had become natural between them. "You do not have to know. You just have to live it, grandmother." Kirith's voice echoed across the deck. The young dragon came running toward them. She had grown bigger over the past year, but her excitement had not changed at all. "Casey, come quick. The delegation from Velisar is here, and they brought babies. They want to know if I can show them around." Vorthana's eyes filled with love. "Go, little one. Make friends." Kirith paused. "Will you come too, please?" "Of course." They walked together through the station. An ancient dragon, a young dragon, and a human woman. Around them, the galaxy was changing. Fear was slowly becoming curiosity. Loneliness was becoming connection. They found the Veloci group in the main area. The spider-like beings were clustered around 3 small babies. When Kirith came close, the adult Veloci became tense. Old fear was still there, but the babies had no such fear. They rushed forward, making excited clicking sounds. "Are you really a dragon? Can you fly? Why are you so warm? Can we touch your scales?" Kirith crouched down, making herself small. Yes, because I have fire inside me, and yes." She held out a wing. "Go ahead. Be gentle." The babies touched her scales with careful curiosity. Their parents watched, and slowly the tension left their bodies. One adult Veloci came to Casey. "We were taught to fear them," she said quietly. "All our lives. But my children see only wonder. Children usually do. They have not learned yet that they are supposed to be afraid. Perhaps we should unlearn it too. Perhaps you should." The Veloci looked at her with many eyes. "You started all of this. One human who stepped forward when everyone else stepped back. Why? Casey watched Kirith teaching the babies a game. She watched Vorthana speaking with the Veloci elders, finally finding equals who did not run from her. She watched Sophie, the little girl from Mars, who had traveled all this way to see her dragon friend. Because family is not just about blood, Casey said. It is about choice. It is about seeing someone who needs you and deciding to be there. The dragons needed someone to see past the fear. I just happened to be the one who looked. And now? Now they are family. Strange, scaled, fire-breathing family who argue about how hot the room should be and take up way too much space on ships. But family. The Veloci made a sound that might have been a laugh. Humans are strange creatures. The strangest. But in a good way, I hope. That evening, as the festival celebration slowed down, Casey found herself on the observation deck again. This time, she was not alone. The entire dragon family had gathered, along with dozens of human friends they had made over the year. Vorthana stood at the window, her large form dark against the stars. When we first came out of hiding, she said, her voice reaching everyone there, we expected nothing. We had spent 10,000 years preparing to be rejected, to be hated, to be turned away. She turned to face the group. Instead, we found Casey Brooks, one small human who saw us not as monsters, but as people, who reached out her hand when everyone else pulled back. Her golden eyes found Casey in the crowd. You gave us something we had lost so long ago, we forgot what it felt like. What is that? Someone asked. Hope? Vorthana's voice cracked slightly. You gave us hope. Kirith bounded over to Casey and wrapped a wing around her. You gave us more than hope, Casey. You gave us family. The wing was warm around her, and Casey felt tears on her face. Around her, humans and dragons hugged and laughed and cried and celebrated the impossible thing they had built together. You know, Casey said, her voice thick with feeling, when I walked across that hall toward you, I was so scared. I know, Vorthana replied. I could smell it. Then why did you not say anything? The ancient dragon smiled. It was an expression she had learned from humans. Because bravery is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward anyway. That is what you taught my people. That is what you taught the galaxy. She lowered her head until her eyes were level with Casey's. That is the gift of humanity. You feel the fear, and you love anyway. Casey reached up and touched the dragon's face. And that is the gift of the Dracarith. You waited 10,000 years and never gave up hope. Even when you had every reason to. Perhaps that is why we found each other, Vorthana said. Two species who refused to give up. Above them, the stars burned bright. Ships from a dozen worlds hung in space, carrying beings who had come to see something new. Something different. Something that had not happened in 10,000 years. A family reunited. A galaxy changed. All because one human stepped forward when everyone else stepped back. Sophie tugged on Kirith's tail. Tell me again about how you met Casey. Kirith laughed and settled down, tucking her wings around the little girl. It was the greatest day of my life. All these important beings were in a big room, and they were all scared of us. All of them backing away. And then this tiny human, no bigger than you will be someday, started walking toward us. Casey listened to the story she had lived, surrounded by the family she had chosen. In the reflection of the window, she could see humans and dragons together, their shapes mixing against the background of stars. This is what it was always supposed to be, she thought. This is what family looks like. And somewhere out in the galaxy, on 100 different worlds, beings were reading about what had happened. They were watching videos of dragons and humans together. They were seeing a little girl touch a dragon's wing without fear, and they were starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, they did not have to be afraid anymore. all because everyone stepped back from the dragon family and one human advanced.